Hey everybody, it's Nancy Norbeck with this week's Creative Pep Talk, and this one might surprise you. In fact, you might be listening to it going, really? Is this title for real? It's for real. So this week's creative tip is very simple. I want you to decide that you're going to do something, and I want you to decide that you're going to do it badly. Now, everything in our culture tells us that that's a terrible idea, that we must strive to do excellent work all the time for perfection if we can possibly manage it, that only the best is good enough. And if that makes you feel better, then I guess you can tell yourself that. And I'm not saying that any of those things are bad goals. But here's the thing. When you set out to do something perfectly, in many ways you set yourself up to fail. You set yourself up to fail because nothing less than perfection will do. And almost never does any human being turn out something perfect, especially on the first go. Could be argued that there is no perfect work of art in the world because a lot of art forms are never done, right? Writers know that at some point they're going to have to abandon one project to move on to the next one because they will never be able to make it perfect. There will always be a sentence or a phrase or even punctuation that you could make better. But at a certain point, if you keep trying, you're going to drive yourself nuts and you'll never get anything else done. You have to just decide that something is done, that it's as good as it's going to be, and move on if you ever want to get anything else finished. But in order to get started, it can be really, really helpful to decide to do it badly. Now, this undoubtedly sounds counterintuitive. I know, but think about it. If you are the kind of person who has a really hard time with their inner critic, if you're the kind of perfectionist who stops doing things almost as soon as you start because they're not good enough already, and a lot of us are, let's be real. If you are one of these people, you are far from alone. I count myself among you. What's going to free you to get your creative work done, or in many cases, any other kind of work, is to deliberately decide to do it badly. Now, if you think about this, it makes a whole lot of sense. It doesn't on the surface because we've been told that this is a bad idea. But when you start a project and you start judging yourself immediately for it, what happens? Do you really want to keep going? Or do you get frustrated because it's not good enough? When you decide to do something badly, you immediately shut down that part of your brain that wants to judge you because you already deliberately decided to do it badly. Right? There's nothing to judge because you're not trying to do something perfect. You're trying to do something bad. And let me tell you, if you have never tried this, it is an incredible feeling of liberation and even joy to operate without that inner critic going absolutely haywire on your every move. If you watch a kid, especially a young kid, sit down to draw something, you know it's not going to be very good because I don't think there's ever been a 3-year-old in the history of the world who could turn out a perfect Michelangelo painting, right? Kid doesn't know that, but the kid also hasn't had an inner critic installed yet. So the kid doesn't care. The kid sits down and scribbles something out and holds it up and says, "Look, mommy, it's a unicorn," with absolute certainty that there's no question that what they have drawn is an excellent unicorn. It's much harder for us to get into that mindset, that beginner's mindset, which you'll also hear people talk about like in Buddhism and other philosophies, because we have been raised and conditioned and programmed to believe that everything we do has to be perfect or of a certain acceptable standard. And that standard is something to aim for, but it is not a place to start. because starting is never going to be perfect. I suppose there may be one or two rare people in the world who can occasionally pull out something perfect on the first go. But there aren't very many of them, if any. So why do we hold ourselves to this impossible standard? As you may have guessed, if you have listened to my other pep talks, this goes along with the idea of lowering your expectations and also the talk on small and crappy. But seriously, let yourself open up to the idea of doing it badly. It will really open you up to allow for all sorts of things that may not have been good enough before and may not be good enough now, but there's something to start with. They let you get something done so that you can make it better from there. And if you don't ever have something to start with, you will never, ever get any kind of creative work done because your inner critic will just keep getting in your way. Even if you think this idea sounds completely crazy and you don't buy my explanation, I really hope you will give it a try just to see, even if it's just to prove me wrong. Because I think you will be pleasantly surprised by what you discover and how you feel while you're doing it. Pay attention to how you feel while you're doing it. Pay attention to how open you feel, to how much your whole creative self opens up to possibilities that you might not have entertained before because they might not have seemed like they would be good enough. I really invite you to let me know how it goes too, especially if you think you've proven me wrong, but even if not, because I think you're going to get a lot more done if you just let yourself do it badly. And with that, I will see you next time.